major here. This is going to be, I believe this is Melrose. So from Melrose, it's a straight shot. From that side street, it's a straight shot. They just pull in, line up here, and make a U-turn when they're done and go back the other way to the north. Here comes another large group that's marching towards the shoe store for their shoes.
We'll have to see if they go inside. People are running out of the store right now, and they just keep going. And look at it's trashed. I mean, we're just seeing it, they're lifting up that covering there and going in, and it's just mayhem there. Just boxes everywhere.
And you know, Kathy and Gil, that's a metal gate. Those are usually brought down for safety. It's amazing that they were able to lift that the way that they did and get inside the store.
We weren't here for that, but it must have been a joint effort, a group effort to pull that up. You can see one person here holding up the gate for everybody else, another one here on this end.
Taking a picture, too,
taking a picture.
Yeah,
exactly. So, you know, they're doing the other people a favor, and then they switch and they go in and get their shoes.
Hey, Gil, what about the fires? You know, we've been tracking some of those. We saw the mayor said at least a dozen cars were LAPD cars were damaged. Some of them were burned. Any of those fires still going?
No, the car fires, or at least the squad cars that caught fire earlier in the day, those are long out. I'm going to show you one of them here. Let's see if I can find the location. Actually, it was right there. They may have moved it out.
Yeah, we were watching it with you, watching them as they burned.
Yeah, there it is. And Kathy and Colleen, you see one of them there, a burned out shell. You can't even tell that it was a police officer's vehicle. That one was a Topanga Division officer's vehicle that was set fire. That's at Beverly and Fairfax. This is also the flashpoint where we saw the groups go after the LAPD and chase them down the street this way in front of TV City, and then busted through the gates with the dumpsters. But busting the gates here, and the security guards at the time were the only ones that were able to fend off those people. You see one of the dumpsters there in front of the gate itself. Right now, it's a staging point for the fire department as I zoom back out, and then I'll tilt back up, and you see the Grove here where that fire was earlier by Nordstrom's. It was a security shack that was set on fire, and the people were looting the Nordstrom's as that was burning. So it looks like some calm has been returned to the Grove, and I'm going to pan to the right here and show you one more scene. This is where the bus was being jumped on. I don't know if the bus has been pulled out of there. It looks like it has. That's 3rd and Fairfax. And then a large group that was assembled over here off of this street here. They're long gone. So the groups have splintered all over this area, the Fairfax district. A lot of them moved up Fairfax here where the looting is happening. A lot of them went off to the east. And at this point, the LAPD trying to do what they can, and it looks like they've moved a little bit further into the intersection, or beyond the intersection, back towards that Flight Club LA store. And let's take a look now that we've taken a little tour here to see if that was enough to scare the people away. They're keeping an eye on that skirmish line, but right now they're still going in and out.
You know, Gil, as we continue to look at your picture, we're going to bring in our investigative reporter, Eric Leonard. Eric, you've been talking with folks at the LAPD and the Sheriff's Department. They're on tactical alert, but even more than that, is right?
Yeah, the needs of the department have have grown exponentially in the last few days, as you can imagine. Not just the immediate needs of tonight, but the cascading effect of night after night after night of meeting hundreds of extra officers working a lot of overtime. Just the exhaustion level on the force is tremendous. So the department is getting a lot of help from the County Sheriff's Department. Beyond that, it sounds like assistance is coming in from other parts of the state, Ventura County, any other agencies that have officers to spare who could help manage all of this. And as we've seen in the Fairfax district in particular tonight, the complexity of trying to manage it. They've got a large crowd that most of which was just demonstrating, but then there were groups that started lighting cars on fire, vandalizing police cars, looting businesses. And so it became a really difficult situation to manage in that you had people that the officers did not want to interact with, people there carrying signs, demonstrating, wanting to be seen and heard, and then you had others mingling in that same crowd who were there to do harm. and trying to accomplish both goals, protect the demonstrators, and at the same time deal with the people who are causing problems, is an age-old problem for police. There is not a simple way of handling it. Tonight, the strategy was at first just to let people demonstrate for as long as possible and then begin pushing the crowds in one particular direction and giving people an opportunity to leave on their own. And now that we have this curfew order that's taken effect, unlawful assembly announcements have been made in the crowd. All the components are in place now to begin making a lot more arrests than we've seen so far today, and I expect that's what's going to happen in the next hour. As more and more officers have been sent to the scene, as the management of this situation has improved, they're going to begin taking some action here. To your question, the LAPD not only calls a tactical alert, which means all officers on duty stay on duty until further notice, they also have activated pretty much everybody who wasn't regularly scheduled to work today, and they have activated all of the non-uniformed officers, detectives who would typically be in an investigative capacity. They were told to put on uniforms and either report to work or be ready to report to work. 12 hours on, 12 hours off until further notice. This was the kind of contingency planning that the LAPD was working on at the beginning of the coronavirus concerns. Worries that there was going to be unrest of some kind, and they wanted to be in a position to manage it. Now they're using that same planning, but for obviously a very different purpose.
And we heard from Robert bringing in now the National Guard on a limited basis. What can you tell us about that?
The National Guard is going to provide a relief valve for the department if early indications prove correct. The department and the city leadership is not inclined to send the National Guard into positions where there would be confrontations with demonstrators or protesters. But there are a lot of traffic control, crowd control assignments that can be handed off to the National Guard and allows the LAPD to focus on more of its core job, which is going to be doing regular police work in the rest of the city. Remember, that's been largely throttled down now as the demands for people in the Fairfax and Mid-City area has skyrocketed tonight. So having the National Guard, at least at first, it sounds like they will be used to do a lot of the presence type of operations where intersections need to be monitored, streets need to be closed, and that will give the LAPD a little bit of an opportunity to regroup, give people some rest, and then return to the job that we expect and need them to do, which is running regular police patrols, handling radio calls in neighborhoods all over the city, something they're just unable to do simultaneously tonight.
And as you talk about that, it brings to mind what a coordinated effort it is, because as we said, we've heard from LAPD. I know Chief Michael Moore was called to be down there. He had a presence. We've heard from the sheriff and other agencies. They all have to work together to make this happen.
It's really difficult. All of the local departments have made years of contingency plans for all kinds of disasters. In fact, there's an entire arm of government in the city of Los Angeles that sits around. They don't really sit around, but they strategize and plan for any contingency you can possibly imagine. A lot of their work is on the big earthquake that everyone expects to happen. They make plans for wildfires. What happens if parts of the Santa Monica Mountains have to be evacuated? And they also plan for eventualities like this. And so nobody walks into this cold. There are plans on the books for who gets to be put in charge. How are people going to communicate? What radio frequency are we going to use? Which is the lead agency? Which agency is going to follow along? So they have a rough idea of how this is all going to work out. Tonight, in particular, we've heard from our contacts in law enforcement that as much of an expectation as there was that there was going to be a large demonstration in Pan Pacific Park right there next to the Grove, the preparations for that clearly were overwhelmed pretty quickly. And it just took law enforcement a while to catch up to that.
Eric, it begs the question, is it possible the LAPD underestimated last night how things would get out of hand. I mean, we saw relatively not violent, I won't say peaceful, but not violent protests Wednesday and Thursday. We saw groups manage to get on the freeway. They damaged some squad cars. But last night took it to a whole new level. Did they underestimate the crowd?
I'm not sure underestimate is the right word. We've heard this in a couple of different characterizations from folks who manage the big law enforcement agencies in Southern California. One prevailing thought that we've heard lots of today is that...
Oh, look at this, Eric.
Yeah, it's an
Eric, I want to call your attention
here.
to the screen here.
He's
the
giving them
officers
some
are
trouble.
taking down somebody right here.
Yeah. A man.
This is Melrose and Poinsettia. Kathy and Eric, we heard reports of looting there, and the officers have moved in. Again, we're almost 30 minutes into the curfew. Gil Davis, are you over this?
Yes, I am, Colleen. You're looking at the 7300 block of Melrose where looting was taking place. You see the damage to the buildings, the frontage of the buildings, and they have suspects inside the shops here. And these two that were just taken down were ones that just came out of the building. They have the buildings completely surrounded here. It is like a strip, a row of businesses, I should say, that were looted here. As I come out to a wider shot, you'll see officers in the back as well. There's a vehicle back here. It's unclear if that was involved with the rob. We saw two being taken into custody. That one right in the center of the screen was resisting arrest, tried to break free from the officers, and they had to take him down to the ground. You see another suspect right here with a mask on. He's in custody. He's not resisting, but the officers here waiting for those suspects to come out of the shops here. That looks like a TV shop, and I'm not sure what the building here is with the pink frontage, but you see one being taken away right now in custody. Here comes another one that they got. So actually it looks like maybe 3 and 4 now. It looks like 4 there they have in custody here at these shops.
Did you think someone was still inside at this point?
Yeah, I believe the LAPD thinks there are. They have their weapons drawn. They have the, especially this building here, surrounded. They were looking at that TV shop as well, and officers in the back. So they have the area completely surrounded. You see them in the alleyway back here, and so they believe that there's still looters inside that are just waiting and trying to hide from the officers because they moved in when they were inside the store.
You know, it's interesting. We have all eyes watching this right now. I just got a message from Chuck Henry at home. He's monitoring some of this as well. You're back at the other location where the Flight Club LA store was, that shoe store. He said the people sitting in the middle of the street appeared to be looters as well. Some of them were sitting down waiting to be arrested, and the LAPD had boxed them in and were just waiting for somebody to come in and take them away. So we'll try to get more information on that. And I believe as we continue to look at the scene here, we're going to hear from Robert Kovacic. Robert, you have an update or some breaking news on something?
We do have an update, Colleen. We now know that the National Guard is on its way. We can tell you that they will be here by midnight, and you can expect 1,000 members of the National Guard to be here in Los Angeles. This information coming to NBC4 from LA County Sheriff Villanueva. So now we know the National Guard has been requested. They will be here and they will arrive at midnight. As Eric Leonard so aptly pointed out, this is to provide some type of relief to the LAPD that has every member on the force right now at work and will continue to be at work. So we wait for an update now from Governor Newsom's office, and we're reaching out to Governor Newsom's office to see what the extent of the National Guard's involvement will be. And you also have to keep in mind that the National Guard may be deployed elsewhere. We are understanding there is trouble once again tonight up in the Bay Area, specifically tonight up in the Bay Area, specifically I'm going to find out because I'm going to pick up the phone and call Governor Newsom, and that was about 7 o'clock this evening. And so he got off the phone with Governor Newsom, put in that request. Sheriff Villanueva also putting in that request as well. And the National Guard is coming now to Los Angeles, one of the cities like Minneapolis that did need assistance because, as to quote Mayor Garcetti, these are no longer protests that we're witnessing tonight.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because earlier in the day when we were listening in live as he was giving a news conference, he said it's not something that he wants to do. He did not want to call in the National Guard. He said, I don't want to go back to 1992.
Look at this, Kathy.
There. Yeah, that
palm tree on
up
fire.
in flames. Just more destruction happening there as we continue to watch this live as it unfolds. And Colleen, we are now at 8:30, 30 minutes past the mayor's implemented time to put the city on curfew and shut it down. So what they want is for these people to disperse and go home and everyone to get home safely and not cause this damage and not be out and not be looting, as we have seen at several stores already, including Nordstrom and the Ray-Ban store there at the Grove, but also that high-end sneaker shop where we just saw a free-for-all with people taking it seemed like the entire contents of the store out and getting into cars or walking or running away with their arms full of so many boxes that they couldn't hold on to it all.
I'm wondering, as we watch this shot, if we can get an idea of what street this is. This is so dangerous here. You look at one of those palm trees. When it catches on fire, you've got civilian vehicles underneath there. You've got some of the protesters. Gil, are you over the scene? Can you hear us?
I do hear you, Colleen, and we're looking at Melrose with the cross of Alta Vista, and there's some looting going on the north side of the street. So right down the street from where the officers were making arrests of those 4 or 5 suspects, here's some more activity on the north side of Melrose, just to the east of where those officers are. Sorry about the camera there, but we're going to get that shot for you one more time. The palm tree burning there, and that is continuing to burn without the fire department around. But here's another shop that is being looted. It looks like it's Altivo store there on Melrose, and they're going in and out and taking advantage of the situation there as well.
Okay, let's go to Eric Leonard, our investigative reporter, and he has such insight and some new information. Eric.
Yeah, Kathy, wanted to just button up a few other issues with the police response to this tonight. We've heard now have been injured. It doesn't sound like terribly seriously, but one of the injuries was considered far more serious than the others. They were treated around the scene, mostly for being struck with rocks, bottles, that sort of thing. Additionally, in the last 30 minutes, as police have begun to make more arrests, just like we were watching at that business a few minutes ago, one of the people they arrested was armed with a handgun. And we're told that may have changed the way some of the officers are interacting with people they're taking into custody. They were certainly surprised to find a handgun in the middle of the protest, but that has definitely changed the nature of their interaction with some of the people that they're starting to pull away from the crowd and put in handcuffs. Lastly, last night, we know that the LAPD made over 500 arrests, most of those handled through citations where people were released the same night. It sounds like about 500 people were both cited and released. Only about 18 were held in custody. Those were the small minority who were booked on suspicion of more serious felonies. One of the concerns that the police department has expressed to us is that the people that were in custody were let go right away. The people who caused some of the trouble last night we saw in downtown L.A. were let go immediately, essentially because there is no bail for the types of violations that people were being held on. So they were out immediately, and they were worried that some of the same crowd that was causing trouble last night might be part of the crowd causing trouble tonight.
Eric, we heard reports as well today that that some of the people arrested last night were found to have weapons. I'm not sure about guns, but knives and things like that. We also heard reports that a couple of the officers may have lost their clubs. Any word on that?
Well, there were a few more significant incidents. The most serious by far was at 6th and Broadway last night. That's when officers were set up in a line across the street, just like we're seeing tonight, pushing demonstrators down the street in one particular direction. And a man in a car drove through the line of police officers. They got out of the way. One officer fired at the car with a 40-millimeter less than lethal round. It's like a compressed foam cylinder that comes hurtling at you, and if it were to hit you, it feels like somebody has slugged you very, very hard. They fired that at the car. The car kept going. It sounds like one officer drew his pistol and fired 6 shots. The driver was eventually found and stopped, and they booked the driver on suspicion of attempted murder. That was by far the most serious. As to your question, yes, as people were being processed through the booking procedure, they were being searched, they were being identified, and during that, a number of people were found with pocket knives. That's not terribly unusual. And as far as officers losing equipment, when you've got hundreds and hundreds of officers tussling with people in chaotic situations, all kinds of stuff falls off. We heard there was a two-way radio that was lost, handcuffs were lost, and yes, it does sound like a couple of them may have lost their batons, their PR-24 batons, not the collapsible batons that fold up and they carry on their duty belts.
Got it.
Oh, all right. Eric Leonard, thank you so much for all of your information. As we were just watching from News Chopper 4 Bravo, we saw all that looting at that watch shop. People, again, just as we saw at the shoe shop, going in and taking items away, just one after another, non-stop, and no one there to stop them as the curfew now in effect for all of L.A., and yet we're seeing people on the street still at this hour, and a lot of stores being looted.
You know, Kathy, I just heard from Chuck Henry again, that store that was being looted, Altivo, A-L-T-I-V-O. He says it's a high-end watch store, which might explain why people are trying to get in and out of there. And it also had one of those metal gates that we saw at the shoe store. Somehow they were able to raise that, and you see people running out. Gil, is this another place we're looking at?
This is a different place,
yeah.
Gil, right?
Yeah, yet another one, Kathy and Colleen. This is the Adidas store, 8000 block of Melrose. So well to the west of that high-end watch shop that we were just watching. People coming in and out of what we understand is the Adidas store. And as we get closer, we'll get a better shot for you. But you see them coming in and out. The lights look like they're on, and or at least the frontage is. And you see people coming in and out there with a tighter shot as I zoom in. People just coming in and out. It looks like they busted through the front doors, or busted through the glass, I should say. You see the glass on the floor there, and people running to get shoes and other accessories out of that store. But again, it is the Adidas store, 8000 block of Melrose. No police around at this point. The airship overhead is aware of it, but they have multiple sites here along Melrose that's being looted at this time.
Yeah, they've moved now from that high-end watch shop, and now they're going in here just as easy as can be. And we're just watching those advertisements, that picture of merchandise just moving as they make their way past it. There's no door left there at all. It is easy access. And they're also, it looks like, you know, as you said, the gate is up. They're calling under that gate there on the right side. Yeah.
This has been a long day, and it promises to be an even longer evening. Let me just add this as well. LA Metro, we're just getting word, LA Metro is going to suspend all transit services tonight to resume at 5:30 on Sunday morning, tomorrow morning. They just sent us an email to let us know that. So, Robert, once again, you've been tracking some of the information just west of this area, Beverly Hills. What do you have? Do you have anything on the National Guard as well?
You know, we can tell you that it's all quiet on the Western Front comparatively to, you know, the Los Angeles. So here's what's going on right now in Beverly Hills. It appears that they are dispersing. There's pockets of trouble here and there. That's what they tell us right now. Just spoke with the city. Captain Ed Ramirez, who is the commander of the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department, says they did have problems earlier, that protesters had surrounded the sheriff's station there at the intersection of San Vicente and Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. He said the problem with what happening right now in West Hollywood, as this curfew for West Hollywood and Beverly Hills is underway and has been underway since 8 o'clock, is that they have pockets of people who are now going, when I say pockets, maybe 2, maybe 3 people going and vandalizing businesses there. So they have rolling patrols out in West Hollywood, in Beverly Hills, trying to stop the pockets of people that you see right now in the Fairfax district, but in smaller numbers. But it is going on now as you push west, and that is what they are trying to control. If you are home tonight, just to underline what Mayor Garcetti said earlier, that he encourages you have to stay home. A curfew order isn't in place. Just stay home, be vigilant, don't get involved, don't engage.
Is that a TV?
That is a TV monitor.
TV. Somebody's
being taken out of that store. You know, we've watched expensive shoes, expensive watches, and now this store. So you may be trying to figure out what plans are going to be in place for tomorrow. Well, the city of LA is already looking at tomorrow, and it looks like you may be spending more time at home than you realize. NBC4 has now learned that they are getting ready to shut down some key attractions. Griffith Park, we have now just been told, will be shut down tomorrow. As well as Runyon Canyon will be shut down tomorrow. No one is going to go there. All those gates will be locked for
Robert,
either of those places.
It's the irony of it all. We're getting, we're coming to this point of COVID-19 when things were starting to open, and now shutting them down for a totally different reason.
Well, and of course, social distancing has gone out the window. The face masks have gone out the window. This is going to be something that we're probably going to be discussing in weeks after this. But right now, we have the National Guard, as we told you a short time ago, on its way to Los Angeles, 100,000 members of the National Guard. This is just one city in the nation. From people that I know across back east and down south are saying we're watching what is going on right now in Los Angeles. This has been a focal point for the nation right now with these locations that are so well known in so many places. The Grove, iconic. Fairfax District, home of Farmers Market, Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and Kathy and Colleen, as we talked about for hours now, this was the purpose and the intention of many demonstrators throughout the day that said they wanted to hit these areas that are well known. And you can see the damage that's being done right now.
What is especially sad as you look at this street, if you're familiar with the Melrose area or the Fairfax area, these are not large chain stores. These are the mom and pop stores, the local businesses the mayor's been talking about for 6 weeks. They have been under those, restrictions because of COVID-19. All of a sudden, they get to open in the last week or so, and now this happens.
And as the mayor said of Beverly Hills and Mayor Garcetti, this was supposed to be a weekend where they were going to allow people back into stores, and they're going back in all right. You're looking at it right there. This was the weekend where people were going to have in-store shopping, some in-store dining, and now this is just the looting that is underway on the streets of Los Angeles and stretching in so many pockets of our city that, again, Beverly Hills has had to call for reinforcements from the Antelope Valley, from the sheriff's departments up there to come down and assist. Chief Villanueva of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has had to ask for the National Guard to come in and help because our resources are eventually going to be tapped out, ladies. There's only going to be so many hours that they can be on their feet and trying to manage this situation because everywhere they turn, as we see right now in other cities, there's trouble in just about every block. It may not be large crowds of those protesters and demonstrators that we saw earlier today in Pan Pacific Park, but now it's this scattering, and it's hard to track.
Yeah, it certainly is. Robert, thank you. We're going to stay with you and go up to Gil. Gil, we're continuing to see people going in and looting this Adidas store. They haven't stopped. The whole time we were talking to Robert, we were looking at your live pictures, and they just continue to go into the store, some loading up cars.
Kathy, yeah, we're watching the behavior here. Cars pulling up. and loading up. Here's a person, I don't know if that's the same driver or not, but going in the passenger side, he's looking around there on the driver's side, but we watched him run in, go into the store. We haven't seen the driver come out yet, but that passenger came out. Actually, maybe that was him because he's driving off here. So you're seeing that behavior. Car after car just pulls up, people unload. I watched a gray sedan, a four-door sedan with three guys that loaded up the back seat, absolutely filled. In fact, the third guy barely could fit into the back seat, and that car drove off. So we're seeing it. It's a line of cars, a line of looters that are coming up into that Adidas store, and they keep filing in and out. They're going through the main door, but they're also going through the display window. Right there, you see it, and they just continue hitting that store on and on. Across the street here, there's a high-end glass eyeglasses shop that was being looted. We watched the TV set. I heard Kathy mention that, the TV set coming out of that window. Here comes another person with whatever loot that he found. But again, these two stores, at least on this part of the 8,000 block of Melrose, just being hammered with these looters.
Yeah, it was Colleen who had the good eyes on that TV set. All I saw was some large
What I
object
noticed was
out.
it wasn't boxed, which would indicate that somebody walked in there and took it off the wall and then walked out with
I was
it.
curious to see what else would come out of that store. We were watching that when you saw that. I was really amazed. But what we're really seeing being hit hard is this Adidas store, just like we saw that other sneaker store. And then we saw the watch store also being hit. But they're still pulling out boxes. And look, this guy loses his load. He has so many.
Yeah, and they just come scrambling out of there like cockroaches, and they run to their cars with the boxes. They load them up, and then the next car pulls up, and the same thing happens. Some of them run quite a distance away to awaiting cars. You see how many cars are circling the block here, and it's unclear, how many of these cars are just innocent people trying to get to their homes, and how many are actually belong to the looters. But there is a traffic jam basically here as these people continue to hit these businesses along Melrose, one after the other.
You know what is lost in all of this, and what is so disheartening? What is lost is the message of what happened in Minneapolis earlier this week. The fact that 4 officers are now charged in a man's death. That is, people almost forget it when they see this sort of thing. They don't forget it, but the message right now is this. Gil, are there any officers around that you can see?
Let me try to look, and I haven't pulled away from the scene here. It's like a train wreck. You can't look away. I'm looking for those officers, and you really just don't see it happening.
Well, they wouldn't be in the middle of this street because there's so much traffic, right?
Yeah, I mean, you might see a blocking force over here at this intersection. That's Fairfax and Melrose, but nothing there as far as the police activity. I've seen the airship flying over, lighting up the scene, but just absolutely no police activity here. I think they're just stretched thin throughout the city.
We're also not seeing any large groups of people in this area. I don't know if you've seen any before. You've really been looking at fires and the looting that's going on. And this is that same store. We're back here at the Adidas shop, and they're going to clear the store out. I'm convinced that they will. There will be nothing left.
I believe so. I mean, it appears that the protest has turned into some looting, or the majority of it is turning into looting. We really haven't seen much as far as skirmish lines, at least on Melrose. We did see some to the east over by where that initial shop was, where they got those 5 individuals in custody. But at this end, the west end of Melrose, still no police activity.
What about the police helicopter? I'm sorry, go ahead, Colleen.
Kathy, as we watch this, I just want to let you know that Supervisor Hahn just released a statement urging calm, and I'm going to read this for the first time with you. It's a cold read, so bear with me. She released a statement saying, "I lived through the Watts riots in 1965. I lived through the 1992 uprising. I remember the pain this city and its residents went through. We should all be outraged by the killing of George Floyd. We must stand in solidarity against the deaths of unarmed black men at the hands of law enforcement. But please do not destroy our beloved Los Angeles. This is not a protest anymore." And that was really the thought that I had a few minutes ago, is that it's heartbreaking to see this happening, because the message of what prompted the protests and the civil unrest earlier today and the last couple of days almost seems to be lost in this.
Yes, the message definitely is lost when you see destruction, because no one right now is focused on George Floyd. They are focused on the damage that's being done and the lawlessness that's happened. And you're right, Colleen, earlier it was about a peaceful protest. And now it has turned into something completely different, but it's not everyone. It's these few individuals who came with an agenda. And that agenda, as Robert said, I saw it too out on social media. It was obviously clear they knew what they wanted to do. And even the city of Beverly Hills looked ahead and they boarded up businesses knowing that there was a plan. And that plan was on the part of a few people, not the greater good of the people who came out to peacefully state their purpose and to ask for justice for what happened in Minneapolis. That was not the message that the people we are watching tonight and that we watched earlier at the Nordstrom, at those shops there at the Grove. That's not the message that they had.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to throw this out to you and Gil, and we're coming up on 9 o'clock here. It's 8:50, and so we're well into the curfew here. Does this almost seem like targeted hits? I mean, we've seen 2 high-end shoe stores. We've seen a watch store. This is not vandalism anymore. This is looting. So it almost seems like some of these folks know exactly where they're going.
I think the area definitely was targeted. They, people made that clear, and I think the names are recognizable. They're hitting stores. They know what's inside. Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, Colleen, I think it's easy access along Melrose. So many shops, so many really nice high-end shops even that are along Melrose here, and it's just really easy pickings for the people to drive through. Here comes a fire truck engine coming through, and a paramedic. Let's see where they're going. They're heading off to the east. In fact, I'm going to come away from the Adidas store here and look back to the east where we saw the police earlier. We'll see if there was any activity with, we got the fire, some more fire trucks over here. And it looks like this is that fire that we were looking at earlier, that nail shop that was on fire.
Oh, the nail salon.
Yeah, so you see how close by